We continue with the book titled The Secret to Mental Magic by William Walker Atkinson. Hello, I am Daisy, your hostess. If you found me at this video, welcome. Make sure to check out my book playlist to access the earlier chapters. And to you, my subscribers, welcome back. Thank you for being part of my community, and know that I really appreciate you visiting with me and leaving me your comments. It means the world to me. In this video, the author is going to reveal the process of mental therapeutics in healing yourself, in healing others, and also remote healing. Now, before I get started, I want to close the gap from 1907, which was when this book was published, to our current scientific findings. Traditionally, scientists have tried to define the mind as the product of brain activity, as brain being the physical substance and the mind as the conscious product of those firing neurons. But growing evidence shows that the mind goes far beyond the physical workings of your brain. One thing that I find interesting is the implications of the word neuron. And I learned that the word has its roots in the Greek and has evolved to meaning what it now means. And one of its original meaning was string like bowstring or cord. And Greek puppets were neuropastos, literally drawn by strings. So imagine then each one of those little neurons are like little puppets that are animated into life by the force of mind. Of course, scientifically, they have better words for that. Then, if we keep going down this esoteric hole, the concept of cord, while we're at this Greek definition, it brings to me, or it brings to my mind, the idea in the book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 12, verse 6 through 7, and I'll quote it. Remember him before the silver cord is severed, or the golden bowl is broken, before the pitcher is shattered at the spring, or the wheel broken at the well, and the dust returns to the ground it came from, and the spirit returns to God who gave it. End quote. Yes, it's a bit out there, but I've learned that sometimes we have to travel outside the box because we already know what's in the box. So just throwing these concepts out there. Anyways, Dan Siegel, a professor of psychiatry at UCLA School of Medicine, holds that our mind cannot be confined to what's inside our skull or even our body. And so science today is looking to redefine the definition of mind. 40 scientists across disciplines, including neuroscientists, physicists, sociologists, and anthropologists, after much discussion, decided that a key component of the mind is the emergent self-organizing process, both embodied and irrational, that regulates energy and information flow within and among us. This lengthy definition, which has since been supported by research across the sciences, has meaningful implications. And also, not to go into much more detail, but in the book titled The Consciousness of the Atom by Alice Bailey, and I do have it in my book playlist, so when you get a chance, grab it. It is very informative because the author takes us into a journey where the atom emerges as a miniature replica of the energy structure, demonstrating intelligence of attraction and repulsion, which is a concept that somehow William Walker Atkinson arcs over in this particular book. Different style, but of course there are different things as far as Alice Bailey's just going into the atom and understanding that. But it lets us understand also a little bit about energy and how everything has some sense of intelligence and attraction and repulsion, which actually lines up with the concept of this energy healing. What are we sending out? How are we receiving, right? So a lot of good stuff in these contents. And as we get into this chapter, you too might make the connection. You might see the blending and just have one of those like, okay, this makes sense. So leave me your comments, thoughts, and ideas, and let's start a conversation. I've left several links to my sources in the description of this video, and with that, let's turn the page. The Secret of Mental Magic by William Walker Atkinson. Lesson 6. Mental Therapeutics. Therapeutics means the healing art. Therefore, mental therapeutic means the art or science of mental healing. If I were writing this lesson from the standpoint of 20 years ago, I would think it is advisable to fill page after page with a recital of the many claims of mental healing. But no such necessity exists at the present time. People have heard much regarding mental healing, and while they may differ in their theories and opinion regarding the nature of the cures performed, still they will nearly all acknowledge that cures have been made and are being made by mental healing methods. The ancient forms of mental healing. The history of mental healing extends way back into the past, and the earliest pages of history treat upon it as if it were a long-established and well-accepted method. In fact, the history of mental healing is the history of mental magic, so far as the older peoples and races are concerned. The ancient Magi used their mental powers in the direction of healing the sick and restoring natural healthy conditions. People were brought into the temples to be healed, and after the customary incantations and ceremonies designed to affect the imagination and respect of the primitive people, they were found to be benefited and actually cured in time. But under and back of all these ceremonies and rites, the principle effecting the cure was the same principle that is being used today by all forms of mental healing, under whatever names it may be disguised and masked. There is but one mental healing principle, and that has always been used, is being used now, and always will be used so long as the race exists. Mentative energy, the real principle. And this principle is the application and employment of meditative energy. Mentative energy is positive to both force and matter, as we have seen in these lessons, and the negative always yields to the positive when the latter is probably and intelligently applied. The mentative energy really builds up the body from a single cell and is inherent in every part and particle of the body. Every cell has its supply of mentative energy. The cell and combination of cells and the whole body, in fact, is the result of conditions of manifestations of mentative energy. The body is all mind, and that last analysis, mentative energy, manifests itself in countless ways in the universe, and the physical bodies and the cells of which they are composed are simply certain forms of manifestation of mentative energy. And this being so, mental healing is not a case of mind over matter, as is often thought, but is a manifestation of positive mind over negative mind. The central mind of man is positive to the mind in the body of man, and hence the curing effect. Mind in the cells and organs. Every cell has its share of mind, and science shows us that each cell can and does live its life as a separate entity, always, however, subordinate to the whole system of cells and the mind controlling it. And the mind in each cell or system of cells may be reached by the positive mind of a person when properly applied. In order to fully grasp the significance of this statement, you must remember that every organ, part, bone, nerve, vessel, tissue, and everything else in your body is built up of cells which have formed certain combinations. There are individual cells in your blood and other parts of the body, and there are cell communities in your body which perform certain functions and which you call my liver, my heart, my stomach, my kidneys, etc., etc. And there is mind in every one of them. And the mind in every cell and in every organ may be reached by mentative energy applied by the mind of oneself or another person. My theory on mental healing. And in this simple statement, I have embodied my idea of mental healing, which idea is based upon years of earnest study, experiment, and investigation, aided by personal acquaintance with and association with some of the most celebrated mental healers of this age. I have discarded fanciful theory after fanciful theory as unnecessary to account for the facts observed by the leading investigators of mental healing, and have at last boiled down the matter to this point and idea of mind in the cells and cell groups, which mind is negative to the positive central mind of the individual, especially when the latter is concentrated and intelligently applied. The claims of the cults. You may ask me the question, well, but what about all the various metaphysical, religious, and semi-religious theories advanced to account for the cures performed by various cults and sects of the New Thought and similar movements? Answering this, I would say that the various cults and sects perform cures not because of their dogmas, but often in spite of them. The real cure is being performed by mentative energy, pure and simple, called into operation and employed in various forms and ways under many coverings, disguises, and draperies. It is all the same grand old principle, but with fringe on. The style of fringe depending on the particular theories and dogmas of the sects. One principle under many names. There has been much written, spoken, and taught concerning mental healing, under some name or other, but the majority of the writers have been attached to some particular cult, church, or organization which claimed that the whole truth rested upon the acceptance of some particular theory, idea, doctrine, or dogma advanced and held by it, in accordance with the particular views of some certain teacher or teachers. And, accordingly, the writings have been colored by hue of such belief and dogma. One has but to look around him in order to see that the many conflicting schools of mental or spiritual healing are all making cures, in spite of the claim of each that its particular school or sect or church has a monopoly on truth and a corner on true metaphysical healing. The truth is that they all make cures, the percentage being about the same in each instance, taking the personal qualifications of the healers into consideration. In spite of the several claims that we have the only truth, all others are in error and ignorant of the real truth, etc., etc. All of these erroneous people are getting fine results. Their differing and often contradictory theories do not seem to cut any figure in the real work, and one who closely studies the subject is soon forced to the conclusion that there must be some underlying principle of cure which they are all using. And so there is, and I call this underlying principle the effect of positive central mind upon negative body mind. You may give it another name you choose, but you will get the results just the same. The suggestive value of forms and beliefs. The various theories, statements, forms, observances, dogmas, and whatnot have no other effect than giving a strong suggestion to people who are impressed by the same. Some people get better results when the mental healing is accompanied by some religious or semi-religious talk and explanation, with appeals to the emotional parts of their nature and makes them more receptive to the healing process of the mind. Sacred shrines, images, and relics cause cures in this way. Others get better results when the technical metaphysical theory is urged upon them with a great show and use of long, high-sounding words. They may not understand the words, but they think that there must be something in it, for he used words that I couldn't begin to understand, and yet he knew all about them, etc. Others prefer the scientific explanation of the school of suggestion, which avoids metaphysical or religious theories, and yet get the results. Others still adhere to the mental science idea of the universal mind and the personal mind, and they too get results. Others like the subjective mind and objective mind idea, and they get results too. They all get results, but some take more kindly to certain forms and thus get better results. Various temperaments need special forms. I have frequently advised people to go to healers of certain cults and schools and churches simply because I knew that the ideas of these particular schools, cults, and churches would fit the particular temperament of the person in question, and thus the best results would accrue. I am most Catholic in my ideas and on this subject. I believe in a person employing any phase of mental healing from bread pills to Christian Science, providing that the particular agency employed will invoke the faith. Confidence and belief of the patient to the utmost, whichever form will best do this, that is the form I believe the best for the patient. Manifold taste breed manifold forms. I can see very well why a person of a warm religious temperament would be better benefited by mental healing in a religious form or phase than from mere suggestion or ordinary mental science. It opens up a part of the nature that is conducive to cure. And I can see why others are impressed by technical, complicated metaphysical talk, which causes them to wonder and be impressed, and thus causes an interest and an expectant attention which goes a long way toward making the cure. And I can see why others still would rebel against either of the above-mentioned forms and would be better reached by a plain, scientific presentation of the subject. Every man to his taste, in mental healing as in everything else. In this respect, I am like the Irishman who said he was glad that all people did not have the same taste, for if they did, every mother's son of them would be wanting to steal his wife away from him. The effect of faith, confidence, and belief. But you may ask, why is it that faith, belief, confidence, etc. play such an important part in the cures? If it be true that the real cure is effected through the mind and the cells and cell groups, what have cells to do with faith? This is a good question. And here is the answer. While it is true that the mind and the cells is the medium or cause of the cure, still it is a fact that these cells are negative to the influence of the central mind of the person. And if that central mind be filled with the mental states of disease, fear, undesirable beliefs, etc., then the negative cells and organs must be affected. And if on the contrary, the mental states of the person be changed from fear to hope, confidence, love, faith, belief, and expectancy, then it will be readily seen that the effect upon the cells will be changed for the better. And if in addition to these improved mental states, a still more positive state, a state of conscious control and power, then will the curative effect be greatly magnified and increased. The potent factor of cure. To tell the truth, I earnestly believe that the one great potent factor in mental healing is the removal of fear from the mind of the patient, by whatever means it may be accomplished, whether by reason, argument, faith, hope, or even by superstition. Fear is the most negative of the mental states and simply paralyzes the whole system. Fear and worry actually poison the cells of the body. This is a scientifically demonstrable fact. And if this pall of fear can be lifted by any means, then a big step in the direction of a cure has been effected. And hope, confidence, and belief will lift that pall. That is why I believe in everything that bread pills to CS, as I said a few minutes ago. Whichever agency induces the greater degree of hope, belief, confidence, and expectancy is the best for the particular case. But in all cases, the principle of cure is the same: mind. Mental states and physical conditions. It should not be necessary for me to recite the oft-repeated facts of the phenomenon of disease being treated by mental states, and of cures arising from the same. Every man or woman who reads these lessons has heard this tale over and over again, many times. It is no longer a debatable question, this matter of the effect of the mind in health and disease. The books are full of it. It is as old as the hills, and at no time in the history of the world has this form of mental magic been accorded greater attention and interest. And therefore I shall skip this part of the story and get right down to business in the direction of telling you just how to apply the mentative energy in healing, both present and absent. Mentative induction in healing. Well then, in the first place, the principles of mental healing are precisely the same principles that are applied in all forms of mental magic, as we have seen them in the previous lessons. It is all a matter of mentative induction, first, last and always, and, as in the other phases of mental magic, this induction may arise from either mentative currents or by mental suggestion. Please fix this statement in your mind so that I will not have to repeat it so often. How mentative induction operates in healing. Now, let us see what happens if mentative induction is set up in the mind of a person by means either of mentative currents or mental suggestion when what is called general treatment is given. What is called local treatment will be taken up later. Well, we will suppose that the mental state of the person has been changed by induction, either from currents or by suggestion, to a strong positive state. And that is what one must aim to produce in the patient. This induced positive mental state in the central mind is, of course, strongly positive to the mind in the body and its cells. The mental image of a normal, perfect, healthy, well body being held in the central mind of the patient, it follows that the physical material of the body and cells will begin to materialize in accordance with the pattern set before the mind of the cells by the central mind of the person. It is the old story of mental visualization and physical materialization over again. Of course, the effect is wonderfully heightened if the patient will direct his desire and will strongly to the recuperative and reparative action, in which effort he may be materially aided by the healer. A little secret disclosed. The desired mental state in the patient may be induced either by autosuggestion, self-suggestion on his own part, or by the suggestion of the healers. See where the ceremonies and the frills and fringes of the cults come in, now don't you? Or by the direct mentative currents of the healer applied as indicated in the previous lessons. In this form of healing, the healer works by arousing the mind of the patient so that he really cures himself. This arousing is of course affected by either suggestion or mentative currents, the effect being the result of induction in either case, as you will readily understand. The phases of general treatment. This form of mental healing, which I call general treatment, includes both the form of present healing, that is, when the healer is in the personal presence of the patient, or else along the lines of what is called absent treatments, or distant treatments when the healer and the patient are not in each other's presence. We shall see both forms in operation as we proceed with the lesson. The basis of local treatment. Leaving the subject of general treatment for the moment, let us consider the broad principles underlying local treatment. By local treatment, I mean mental healing affected by the mind of the healer being directly and specially applied to the mind in the cells and organ themselves. You will remember what I have said about there being mind in the cells and organs. Well, local treatment is an application based upon that fact. The mind of the healer is brought to bear in a positive, direct, special manner upon these cells and organs, and the suggestions and mentative currents are directed right to these organs and cells without the intermediate stages of the central mind of the patient, as in the case of general treatment. Of course, one may apply local treatment to himself by directing his mind directly to the cells and organs instead of indirectly by means of general mental states. You may wonder why I speak of directing suggestions to the cells. You may well ask, can the cells hear? No, the cells can't hear. But the utterance of the words of the suggestion by you will enable you to direct your mind more directly and forcefully upon the cells and organs. You will see as we proceed that I advocate speaking right up to the cells and organs of the body and telling them just what you want them to do. You will be surprised when you try this and see how they respond. Close attention necessary. And now that we understand the general principles of both of these phases of mental treatment, let us pass on to a consideration of the practice of mental healing, the actual how of the subject. We will begin with general treatment, both present and absent, and will then take up the second phase of local treatment. In both cases, we'll see the actual methods of treatment in detail, but I must ask you to pay close attention to what I have to say about these treatments, for I am considering a whole course of lessons in mental healing in this lesson, and you will miss something unless you watch closely. First steps in treating. The first step in the personal form of general treatment is to induce in your patient a mental state of calm and relaxation. This is quite important because this mental state causes the patient to become receptive to the impressions that you wish to make upon his or her mind. The best plan is to have the patient seat himself in a comfortable position, or if he's lying down, let him assume a comfortable attitude, and then talk to him a little in order to induce a comfortable, easy frame of mind, which will react upon the physical conditions. Have him relax every muscle and withdraw the tension from every nerve so that he will be relaxed and limber all over from head to feet. The best way to determine whether or not the desired condition has been effected is to raise one of his hands and then allow it to drop back to his sides or lap. If he is fully relaxed, his hand will drop just as if it were not attached to his body. The mental state producing this physical condition may be best stated by words, let go. One must mentally let go before he will be able to let go physically. The patient must feel perfectly at ease and comfortable in order that the best results be gained. The necessary mental condition of the patient. The healer should endeavor to quiet the mind of the patient by an earnest, confident, sympathetic conversation, leading the subject toward bright, hopeful, happy topics, and especially avoiding anything likely to arouse antagonism or argument. He should throw earnestness and feeling into his tones, and speak as if his one object in life were to cure the patient, and of which cure he entertained not the slightest doubt. The healer should forget himself and concentrate his mentality completely upon the subject of curing the patient. He should be very careful to act out the part of the confident, successful healer because sick people are very suggestible and take on impressions very easily, and so if the healer manifests an apparent lack of confidence in his outward demeanor, the patient will be most likely to accept the suggestion, and the work of healing will thus be rendered doubly difficult. If you have studied the lesson on mental suggestion, you will see the psychology of this fact. Preliminary suggestive treatment. It will be well to begin the treatment by a preliminary suggestive treatment in a conversational tone. You should point out to the patient the conditions that you intend to bring out. You should endeavor to obtain the patient's cooperation by means of his holding a mental image of the desired condition. That is, if it be a case of stomach trouble, he should form a mental image of a strong, healthy, normal stomach, doing its work properly and digesting the food that is given it and manifesting a good, hearty, natural appetite. If the patient will do this, he will be able to do much toward aiding you. You should then tell him that his stomach is strong, 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 speaking the words with intense feeling and force, and that normal conditions are reasserting themselves under the power of the mind. You should, in many ways and forms, keep before him constantly a picture of the conditions you wish to bring about, for by so doing you will change his mental image of disease into a mental image of health, and the best results is sure to follow. If you prefer the use of the hands in healing, by all means use them, as such practice gives a most powerful suggestion as well as possessing other advantages. The value of visualization in healing. You will find that you will be able to impart a wonderful degree of forceful, earnest intensity to your voice if you will but practice visualization in 4 treatments. That is, you must endeavor to actually see mentally the conditions that you wish to bring about. And when you are able to do this, you will be able to hold the attention of the patient as his mind follows your words in your description of the successive steps of the cure that you intend bringing about. He will be able to see himself as gradually and surely improving and growing well, not only in a general way, but also in the sense that he will be able to form a mental picture of the formerly diseased organ actually growing strong and normal. Always keep before you the mental image of the conditions that you wish to bring about. See them before you as actually existing right now. And your mind and actions and voice will conform to that mental image, for by so doing, the patient will receive the best possible suggestion and induced mental states along the lines of mentative currents. Healing by mentative currents. And now to the actual work of mental healing by mentative currents. In this work, I must again repeat my injunctions given a moment ago regarding the holding of the proper mental image in the mind of the healer. In the degree that the proper mental image is held, will be the degree of success in the treatment. Visualization is the keynote of this form of mental healing, and the healer should devote himself earnestly to acquiring the art of visualization. You must be able to see the patient as healed and the organs, parts, and cells as functioning normally and properly. Cast aside all negative thought and doubts and throw yourself earnestly into the work before you. You will find that as the ability to visualize is acquired, there will come to you a feeling of strength and power and a sense of certainty about your work. The process almost automatic. The process of transmitting the mentative current is not especially difficult or strenuous. In fact, this part of the work seems almost automatic. All that you will have to do is to concentrate your full attention upon the mental image that you have visualized and earnestly desire that the picture materializes, and do not bother at all about the currents, for the latter will begin to flow freely without any voluntary effort on your part. Occasionally you may throw a little willpower into the work in order to stimulate the healing process, but ordinarily the unconscious use of the desired force will accomplish the result. It is not necessary to use the strenuous effort that so many mental healers employ in giving treatments. This is all waste energy and tires one out without any corresponding advantage to the patient. The clear-cut mental image produced by the practice of visualization performs the work for you, as I have said, almost automatically. The more realistic your picture is made to appear to you, the greater the force sent forth and the greater the degree of success will you have in your healing. A valuable point of practice. Some excellent healers have found that they gained additional force if they would add to their mental picture or image the picture of the mentative currents actually leaving their bodies and traveling toward the patient and then enveloping and surrounding the latter. One very good healer has told me that she always can see mentally the patient being bathed in a perfect stream of her mentative energy. I feel that this lady was right, and that by adding this feature to the mental image, very good results may be obtained. The student of these lessons will find this last image easy to produce if he will remember what we have said about thought forms. Concluding the treatment. I do not advise too long treatments, for I believe that the best results are obtained in a treatment extending over, say, not more than 15 minutes. You should then leave the patient with a few earnest words of encouragement and hope, bidding him aid you in your work by keeping the proper mental images of health before him, and especially avoiding all fear and worry. Simple but powerful methods. The above process of giving a mental treatment may seem very simple to those who have not practiced it, but you will find that it contains the real essence of the healing process without the fringe and trimming. And more than that, you will find it wonderfully efficacious. It will do the work. You will never begin to even faintly realize the virtue of such a treatment until you begin to practice it. You will then find yourself filled with such a sense of power, strength, and healing force that you will seem like another person, and your patient will likewise feel an immediate benefit. I might write page after page giving you directions about the treatment, but after I was through, it could all be boiled down into the plain, simple directions already given you. I have given you the essence of the practical treatment. You may add the trimmings yourself, if you feel that you need them. This same essence you will find to underlie all of the treatments of the various sects and cults after you have trimmed off the fancy additions, high-sounding words, and metaphysical terms. I have studied all of these forms of treatment and know just what I'm talking about when I say this to you. How to give absent treatments. And now for the absent treatments along the lines of general treatment. There is practically no difference in the methods. The principal addition process is that of the healer endeavoring to form a mental image of the patient as if he were right before him in person. If you have ever seen the patient, you may easily reproduce his mental image, but if you have not seen him personally, you can form a mental image of a man or a woman without filling in the details of personal appearance, and the result will be similar. You will find the following method will help you in the treatment. Sit down in your chair after drawing up another chair right before you, but about 2 or 3 yards distant. Then picture your patient as sitting in this other chair, and use your imagination to the fullest in this respect. Many practitioners of successful mental healing actually feel that the patient is sitting right before them in this form of treatment. Then, with your patient sitting before you as a mental image, talk to him just as if he were present in person, using the same words, tones, and manner. Throw yourself earnestly into the idea of a personal treatment and endeavor to forget that miles are between you. By so doing, you will be able to start the mentative currents flowing freely in his direction, and he will be affected by them and will obtain the best results. I have been told frequently by persons who have taken this form of healing from some of the world's best mental healers that they could almost see the healer before them. They could certainly feel his presence very distinctly. The particulars of absent treatment. This talk to the distant patient should consist of the same calming, quieting, soothing suggestions at first, followed by the positive, stimulating, forceful suggestion given afterward. Follow the precise instructions given for use in personal treatments, and you cannot go astray. There is no difference in reality between personal treatments and absent treatments. If you will remember this and act upon it, you will have the key to the matter. And then, after the suggestive talks, you should then give the same silent mentative treatment as indicated in my instructions regarding personal treatments. You should form the same kind of mental image and proceed just the same in every particular. Even bid him goodbye as you would in a personal treatment. If you have a set time for the absent treatment, your patient should place himself in a comfortable, relaxed position. But this is not necessary. It is not necessary for the patient to even know the hour of treatment. All that he needs to do is to open his mind receptively to the treatment that you are to give him sometime during the day. That is, he should express his mental willingness and thus take off the resistance of his will, which otherwise would have to be overcome. The why of absent treatments. The healer who wishes to give absent treatments should study carefully the lesson of this course entitled The Science of Telementation. In that lesson, he will see the process of telementative influence along the lines of mentative induction and will understand the details of the subject by reading what has been said regarding the currents, thought forms, etc. Remember, please, that all the work of mental healing is done along the lines of mentative induction, just as is the process of all form of mentative influence. There's but one great law underlying all of these forms of manifestation, and if you understand the fundamental principle, you will be able to reproduce any or all of the manifestations of it. The instruction regarding mental healing is not confined to this lesson alone. It must be gained from a study of all these lessons for the reasons just stated. Strive always to acquire a clear knowledge of the underlying principles, and you need not worry about the details of operation or manifestation. Self-healing by general treatment. And now, just a word about self-healing along these lines. There is no difference between self-healing and the healing of others. I'm going to give you the Atkinson method of mental self-healing. It is my favorite method. All that is necessary for you to do is to imagine yourself as a patient coming to yourself for a treatment. Suppose your name is John Smith and you wish to treat yourself along the lines of the general treatment. Well, all you have to do is to let the central mind part of you, or the I, proceed to treat the body of John Smith. You talk to John Smith just as if he were an entirely separate individual. Tell him what he should do, and what he should know, and what you expect to do for him. Give him the same suggestions that you would give another patient. Talk up to him and tell him just what you mean to do for him and what he has got to do for himself. Then give him the silent treatment just as you would another patient. Even give him the parting words just as you would a patient. In short, treat him first, last, and all the time as you would another patient. You will be surprised to note how efficacious this plan is. I believe that this is the first time that this plan has been stated in print. It is original with myself, so far as I know. There is a good, strong psychological and occult reason for this plan of self-treatment, which is not necessary to go into here. The principal thing is that it will do the work. Try it. The ordinary method of self-treatment is to say, I am well, and so on, giving the suggestions in the first person. I consider that my own plan gives better results, but you may try both and decide for yourself. Local treatment. And now for the local treatment methods of mental healing. Well, these are very simple, also so simple that I fear that some of you will undervalue them. But do not deceive yourselves. Good friends, the simplicity represents years of hard work along experimental lines and is really the boiling down of many methods far more complicated and technical. It is the essence of the thing, again. I wish that I could have obtained this information as easily as you are doing, but I couldn't, for I had to work it out for myself in connection with other experimenters and investigators. The theory. The underlying theory of this local treatment in mental healing is one, that there is mind in every cell, cell group, organ, and part of the body, and two, that the mentative energy in such mind is negative to that in the central mind of the individual and, consequently, yields to its positivity when properly applied. That is the whole story in a nutshell. Now, see if you can grasp its importance. The identity of principles. The above principle of the local treatment is really also employed in the general treatment because the central mind of the patient is stirred into induced activity and positivity by suggestion or mentative currents of the healer, or both. The central mind of the patient, so stirred up by induction, then acts upon the mind in the cells, organs, etc., unconsciously, and the cure results. Do you see just what I mean? Well, then, in the local treatment, instead of going about it in this way, the healer brings his mentative energy to bear right directly upon the mind in cells and organs themselves. So you see, the process is really the same at the last that it is in the application of the positive central mind upon the negative mind of the cells, organs, and parts. The basis of the treatment. Now, then, how may one treat the cells and organs of another person in this way? The process is very simple. When you once learn it, all that is necessary is for you to treat the organ or part just as you did the patient in personal, absent, or self-general treatment, as stated a little while ago. You must learn to talk to the organ or part affected and to give it suggestions and silent treatment just as you did your personal patient. In short, the nearer you can come to considering and treating the cells or organs as if they actually were personalities or entities, the better will be your success in this form of treatment. This is no mere trick or a bit of superstition. It is based upon good psychological principles and has its reason in well-defined occult laws. There is mind in the organ and cell, and you are reaching out to it. Let us see how to reach that mind in order to properly impress it. The practice of local treatment. Well, the way to reach the mind in the cells, cell groups, ganglia, organs, nerves, parts, etc. of the body is to address yourself directly to it, just as you would to a person. You must think of the mind in the affected parts as a person who is misbehaving. You must remonstrate with, argue with, coax, order, or drive the person residing in the organ, just as you would different individuals. Sometimes coaxing is much better than driving, and sometimes the forceful method is necessary, as we shall see. You may either talk out loud to the mind in the organ, or else, and this is the better way in treating others, you may do your talking mentally. Tell them just what you expect of them, just what you intend they shall do, just what is right for them to do, etc., and they will obey. A good suggestion. I know a lady who is an excellent healer along these lines, and who obtained the principles of this particular form of healing from myself. She tells me that she followed my plan, as above stated, with the exception that, to her, the organs, nerves, and parts always seem like disobedient children who must be managed one way or another, and so she proceeds just as she did when she was a successful school teacher. And I am inclined to think that she is right, and has made an improvement on my original idea. For these cell minds or organ minds closely resemble the minds of undeveloped children, and are often unreasonably stubborn, although, if they are reached the right way by a firm, though kindly tone in most cases, they will obey orders and mend their ways. The use of the hands. It is well to use the hands at the beginning of this form of treatment, in the direction of tapping or patting the part of the body directly over the organ. This seems to have the effect of awakening the attention of the organ mind, so that it becomes more receptive. It is akin to tapping the shoulder of a man on the street to whom you wish to speak. In such cases, it is well to send the mental command, "Here, listen to me." The hands of the healer may also be passed over the body as the mental commands are given, and they serve to give an additional and strengthened suggestion when properly used. A plain, simple plan. A plain, simple way of giving this treatment is to awaken the attention of the mind in the organ or part, as above stated, and then proceed to mentally lecture it, calling it by name, as for instance, "Here, stomach," or "Now, you, liver," etc. Don't smile at this advice. Just try it yourself, and you will stop smiling. Then go and tell the organ mind just what you would tell it if it were an actual personality, a childish mind, for instance. You will soon find how quick the organ mind is to awaken to your words and to act upon your suggestions or orders. Follow the laws of suggestion in giving these treatments to the organ minds, that is. Remember the suggestive phases of repetition, authoritative demand or command, etc. Don't be afraid, but start in to give the organ mind a piece of your mind, and it will obey. The degrees of mind in the bodily organs. Dr. Paul Edwards, one of the world's most famous mental healers, whom I met quite often a number of years ago when he was living in Chicago, informed me that the result of his practice has taught him that there was a great difference in the intelligence of the mind in the several organs. For instance, he believed that the heart was very intelligent and quite amenable to mild, gentle coaxing, suggestions and advice or orders, while on the other hand, the liver was a most mulish, stubborn, obstinate organ mind, which had to be driven along by the sharpest and most positive suggestions. I have since investigated along this line, and I am now fully convinced of the correctness of Dr. Edwards' theory in this respect. I have found the heart to be very gentle and obedient, as he said, and I have moreover found it needed but the slightest word to attract its attention. I have found the liver to be brutish, stubborn, and obstinate, and needing the most forceful, insistent methods, something like driving a stubborn donkey along the road. I have also found the liver to be lazy and sleepy, and needing much effort to rouse into a receptive condition. The stomach I have found quite intelligent, particularly if it has not been brutalized by stuffing, and it will respond readily to the treatment. A peculiar thing about the stomach is that it seems to like jollying or flattery. Tell it how good a stomach it is, and how well it can do its work, and how much you trust it to run things right for you, and lo, proceeds to make good and justify your praise and commendations. The treatment of special organs. The nerves respond readily to this form of treatment along gentle coaxing lines. The circulation of the blood may be increased to certain parts or restrained in this way. In this way, the blood can be swept all over the body, creating a pleasant glow, or it may be drawn away from an aching head or a feverish brow. The bowels respond readily to a firm, kind treatment in which they are to be told to move regularly, it being well to name a certain time at which you expect them to establish a regular habit, in which case be sure to keep your appointment with them and give them a chance. The organs peculiar to women will respond quite readily to this form of treatment. Regular menstruation has often been established by treating the proper parts in this way a month ahead and keeping it up every day until the regular period. In this case, it is also well to fix a date. Suggestions of firm, now be firm and strong, have relieved many cases of womb weaknesses. Profuse menstruation has yielded to commands of slow, now, easy, easy, not so free of flow, etc. What to say and how to say it. There are no fixed forms of treatment along these lines. You must acquire the knack by practice. The proper words will suggest themselves to you. The thing to do is to know what you want done, and then command the organ mind to do that thing, using the same words that you would use in talking to a real person in the place of the organ. You will soon acquire the art by a little practice. And those who have treated a large number of persons in this way have told me that the mind in the organs and parts seem to instinctively recognize the healer's powers over them, just as a horse or dog will recognize men who are accustomed to managing animals of their kind. So will these organ minds instinctively recognize their master in one who has studied this art of mental healing along these lines. Mind versus mind. Remember always that you are mind talking to mind, not to dead matter. There is mind in every cell, nerve, organ, and part of the body, and in the body as a whole. And this mind will listen to your central mind and obey it, because your central mind is positive to it. The organ is negative to you. Carry this idea always with you in giving these treatments, and endeavor to visualize the mind in the organs, etc., as clearly as may be. For by so doing, you get them in better rapport with you and can handle them to better advantage. Words and their inner meaning. And also remember that it is not the mere sound of the words that happen to reach the organ or cells. They do not understand words as words, but they do understand the meaning behind the words. They recognize the mental state of which the word is the outward symbol. But without words, it is very hard for you to think or clearly express the feeling. And so, by all means, use the words just as if the organ minds understood their actual meaning. For by so doing, you can drive in the meaning of the words and induce the mental state conditions necessary to work the cure. A local treatment in absent healing. While this local treatment is adapted especially to personal healing, still it may be also used to great advantage in absent healing by combining it with the regular general form of absent healing. That is, after giving the general absent treatment, proceed to place yourself en rapport with the organ mind in the patient, and then talk to it just as you would if the patient were actually present. A visualization will enable you to do this effectively. I have heard of some wonderful cures having been effected by the use of this form of local treatment in absent healing in connection with the general treatment. Local treatment in self-healing. And in case of self-healing, this local treatment acts with wonderful force. One can, of course, talk up to his own cells and organs just as he can to those of another, and with equal effect if he goes about it right. This opens up a wonderful field for self healing. The methods and practice of local treatment in self healing is precisely similar to those used in treating others. I am personally acquainted with a lady who has learned to make her body obey her perfectly. If the body looks tired or droopy or lack freshness and beauty, she just talks up to it and tells it how much she thinks of it and how much she appreciates all that it is doing for her, etc. And at the same time encourages it to manifest activity and interest, etc. The result is that the next morning after the treatment, she will find that all of her suggestions have been accepted and acted upon by the body, and that the latter looks fresh, active, and beautiful, manifesting all the appearance of youth and perfect health. I have heard of women managing to retain their youthful appearance in a similar manner. I have known men to coax up their bodies when under the strain of unusual work, with the best of results. In fact, I believe that in this form of treatment of one's own body, there are possibilities as yet undreamt of by the race. Perhaps this hint may start some investigator to exploring the field of the limit. I have not found time to carry my investigations along this line quite as far as I would have liked. There is a great unexplored field here. There is a chance for some fine work here for the students of this book. What this system of healing represents. And now I seem to have reached the end of this lesson. Remember, please, that within its pages I have condensed information sufficient to have filled a good-sized volume or two. Read it carefully, and do not let the simplicity of my methods lead you to ignore the wonderful possibilities open to those who will practice them. I have not cared to dress up my treatments and methods in fancy garb for the purpose of bewildering the eye and creating an impression upon the foolish and childish minds of those who run after these things. I do not want a following of this sort. I want, rather, the earnest, sympathetic cooperation of my students who appreciate the virtue in these apparently simple methods. As I have said before, these simple methods and forms of treatment represent the work and experience of myself and others extending over a number of years. They are the boiling down of many systems and my personal lines of experiment. They embody the simplest, plainest, and yet the most effective methods known to the world of mental healing today. Take my word for this. I base this statement upon 7 active years of earnest, patient, careful investigation, experiment, and study along these lines, under circumstances with which few are fortunate enough to be favored. I say these things not in the spirit of boasting or booming my own wares, but merely that you may understand just what is behind and under these simple forms, methods, and treatments. Freedom from cults and organizations. You will notice, I hope, that in order to practice these methods of mental healing, you are not required to join anything, nor are asked to connect yourself with any new religion or semi-religion. You may adhere to your favorite beliefs and still make as many cures as the best of those who believe and claim that the healing is done because of some fantastic theory, dogma, or belief. There is no more sense in building up a religion around mental healing than there is in building one up around homeopathy or allopathy or osteopathy or hydropathy or any other pathy. There is but one healing power of the mind, and that is free and open to all. It is the gift of the infinite to its finite reflections. It is a natural force working under certain laws and free to all. Take it and use it toward the healing of the nations, beginning with yourself. End of chapter. All right, good stuff here, right? Please do leave me your comment. Let me know what you feel about this. Are you a healer? What type of mode do you use? Have that you use this for yourself at all? And well, let's go over to the next video where we move on to the chapter from lesson 7 titled Mental Architecture. If you haven't done so, hit like, share, and subscribe.